Chapter 7. Fundamental Education. I will never become tired of emphasizing that the academic and educational systems of these degenerated times are only useful to adulterate the authentic values of the being. Facts have come to demonstrate that I am right. Each school year, approximately 500 West German children will commit suicide, according to the statistics of previous years. It is estimated that 14,000 adolescents will try to take their lives, and a high number of them, 1 out of every 3 students under 16 years of age, will have severe symptoms of tension caused by what the Germans denominate as Schulangst, which means acute scholastic anxiety. The pressures and tensions of school, which some children find that they cannot combat, are responsible for one of the most serious situations which the youth faces. Schulangst seems to be one more social phenomenon, the result of a highly competitive school system, not only in Germany, but in all the countries of the world, mixed with high unemployment and a hierarchic society that worships foolish academic diplomas as a ticket to obtain highly remunerated jobs and a status symbol. The number of school-age children who go through this type of anxiety feel that the systems of tension are unbearable. According to a study carried out by Karl Strittmatter, a professor of educational science, 1 out of every 3 boys under 16 years of age suffer chronic stomach problems, wet their beds while sleeping, or suffer severe headaches. 1 out of every 5 students are under psychiatric treatment, and it has been found that even children 9 years old suffer ulcers due to school tension. The interesting thing of the case are the statistics on school suicide, especially discouraging due to the age of the victims. Of 517 students under 18 years of age who committed suicide in Germany in 1976, 103 of them were between 10 and 15 years of age. The level of suicide among young people under 18 years of age is approximately 3.3 in every 100,000 in West Germany, 50% higher than in the United States, where suicide among adolescents is also an alarming problem. As long as one does not work with a fundamental education based on the solid principles of free initiative, non-imitation, creative liberty, conscious attention, value, love, how to think, knowing how to listen, wisdom, generosity, comprehension, integration, simplicity, peace, veracity, intelligence, vocation, etc., explained in my book, Fundamental Education, not only children and adolescents, but adults as well, will continue in acute anxiety and in the monstrous increase of the suicide rate. The press. All newspapers are filled with ideas that in reality falsify the mind. In this path of psychological liberation, it is not convenient to falsify the mind. It seems to me that in order for there to be true mental health, one needs conscious faith. The skepticism of journalists is contagious and destroys the mind. Children, instead of reading foolishness, should be taken to the countryside and fairy tales of olden times narrated to them. In this manner, their mind will remain open and free of prejudices of these decadent and degenerate times. In these decrepit and mechanical times, it is necessary to recover the capacity of amazement. Unfortunately, modern people have lost this capacity. Television. What is important in life is not to fill the mind with foreign ideas that are seen on television, since with time they become effigies. The images that are seen on television are reproduced in the mind, transforming themselves into representations that take up psychological reality. It is necessary to have the mind clean so that the being can officiate in our psychological universe, free of the shackles of the ego. Those who search for the integral revolution can see useful movies that are related to nature so that they can obtain objective benefits for the superlative consciousness of the being. Ultra-modern music. Modern music has no harmony and no authentic melody, and it lacks precise rhythm as well. I consider modern music to be inharmonious, with a type of strident sounds which is harmful for all the 5 cylinders of the human machine. Music of an ultra-modern type harms the nervous system and alters all the organs of the human physiology. Modem music does not keep concordance with the melodies of the infinite. If the ego is destroyed, one will vibrate with the cosmic music and with that of the world of the spheres. Romantic music is related with the things of time and is illusory. Classical music leads us to the communion with the ineffable, which is not of time and is the eternal. Solionensius. The great Russian scientist George Lakhovsky, after having profoundly studied the sunspots, arrived to the discovery that an intimate relationship exists between them and wars. In this era of remote-controlled rockets, profound studies have been made on cosmic rays and their influences on the living cell and organisms in general. The complex mechanism of remote-controlled rockets can be controlled by means of radioactive waves. Neither the radioactivity of the planets in space nor their electromagnetic influence upon living organisms can be denied any longer. A cosmic law called Solionensius exists, which has manifested itself on our planet Earth 40 times after the submersion of Atlantis. This cosmic law results from the electromagnetic tension of the worlds. Solar system of Ors has a neighboring system called Beliotto. There also exists in the cosmos the famous comet Solny, which sometimes draws dangerously close to the resplendent Beliotto. Such a resplendent sun has many times seen itself forced to develop a strong magnetic tension in order to be able to firmly maintain its customary cosmic path. This tension, as is natural and logical, provokes identical tension in all the neighboring suns, among which is our sun called Ors. When our sun Ors puts itself in electromagnetic tension so that the cosmic path it follows is not modified, it originates identical tension on all the planets of the solar system of Ors, including our planet Earth. This is the cosmic Solionensius, the great law which acts on our Earth at very long intervals. Normally, this great law produces intense religiosity and profound yearning for inner self-realization. But when humanity is not psychologically prepared for the action of this law, the result is customarily catastrophic. In the year 1917, the aforementioned cosmic law manifested itself intensely. But since the Russian proletariat was full of profound resentments and bitterness, Solionensius was combined in an abnormal and negative manner with the psyche of each individual. The result of that negative combination was the Bolshevik Revolution. It had already been a while that Russia had been preparing itself psychologically for this bloody revolution. The Bolshevik Revolution was certainly the result of an extremely bad combination of Solionensius with the psychological idiosyncrasy of each individual. One of the characteristics of this law in action is the yearning for freedom. However, there were in Russia during that time of the Bolshevik Revolution a few persons who were able to intelligently take advantage of Solionensius to develop objective reason, individual self-consciousness, and the revolution of the dialectic, which will also emerge during these times. Many years have passed, and we do not yet know when Solionensius will return. What we do know is that we should prepare ourselves psychologically to receive it in an intelligent manner and achieve, with the help of the same, the integral revolution that I propose in an objective manner in this treatise. It is but logical to think that if Solionensius finds us without any type of psychological preparation, the result has to be a catastrophe. It is good to record in our memory and to never forget that the Bolshevik Revolution and the War of 7 Days were really a social catastrophe. We should aspire to carry out on the earth the revolution of the dialectic, and that is why it is necessary to prepare ourselves psychologically as best as possible. It would be lamentable for the next Solionensius to find us without any type of psychological preparation. In the past, each time that Solionensius manifested itself, it was catastrophic when humanity was not prepared. Let us remember ancient Egypt. Between one dynasty and another, there were terrible events. Twice did Solionensius manifest itself in a catastrophic manner in the sunny land of Chem. In the first one, the people, in a bloody revolution, elected rulers through blood and death. The candidates who had in his sacred vase the greatest number of eyes belonging to people without religion are conservative and reactionary by nature. Only the religious man achieves the revolution of the dialectic. There is no reason that justifies religious wars like those of Ireland. It is absurd to classify others as unfaithful, heretics, or pagans because of the simple fact of their not belonging to our religion. The sorcerer who in the heart of the African jungles exercises his priesthood before the tribe of cannibals, and the aristocratic Christian archbishop who officiates in the metropolitan cathedral of London, Paris, or Rome rest on the same principles. Only the religious forms vary. Jesus, the divine rabbi of Galilee, taught all human beings the path of the truth and the revolution of the dialectic. The truth was made flesh in Jesus and will become flesh in every man who achieves integral revolution. If we study religions, if we carry out a comparative study of religions, we will find in all of them the worship of the Christ. The only thing that varies are the names which are given to the Christ. The divine rabbi of Galilee has the same attributes of Zeus, Apollo, Krishna, Quetzalcoatl, Lao Tse, Fuji, the Chinese Christ, Buddha, etc. One is amazed when one carries out a comparative study of religions. All of these sacred religious personages that personify the Christ are born on the 24th of December at 12 o'clock at night. All of these sacred personages are eons of immaculate conceptions. All of them are born by the deed and grace of the Holy Spirit. All of them are born from virgins who are immaculate before childbirth, in childbirth, and after childbirth. The poor and unknown Hebrew woman Mary, mother of the adorable Savior Jesus, the Christ, received the same attributes and cosmic powers of the goddess Isis, Juno, Demeter, Ceres, Vesta, Maya, Adonin, Insobertha, Rhea, Cybele, Tonantzin, etc. All of these feminine deities always represent the Divine Mother, the eternal cosmic feminine. The Christ is always the Son of the Divine Mother, and worship is rendered to her by all the holy religions. Mary is fecundated by the Holy Spirit. Tradition narrates that the third Logos, in the form of a dove, fecundated the immaculate womb of Mary. The dove is always a phallic symbol. Let us remember Peristera, nymph of the court of Venus, transformed into a dove by love. Among the Chinese, the Christ is Fuji, the Chinese Christ who is miraculously born by the deed and grace of the Holy Spirit. While a virgin named Hoa Se walked on the riverbank, she placed her foot on the footstep of the great man. Immediately she was affected emotionally, seeing herself surrounded by a marvelous splendor, and her womb conceived. 12 years having transpired, on the 4th day of the 10th moon at midnight, Fuji was born, thus named in the memory of the river on whose riverbank he was conceived. In ancient Mexico, the Christ is Quetzalcoatl, who was the Messiah and transformer of the Toltecs. One day, while Chamal Man was alone with his two sisters, a messenger from heaven appeared to her. The sisters, upon seeing him, die of fright. She, upon hearing from the angel's mouth that she would conceive a boy, instantly conceived Quetzalcoatl, the Mexican Christ, without the work of a male. Among the Japanese, the Christ is Amida, who intercedes before the supreme goddess Ten Sik Dai Tain, praying for all sinners. Amida, the Japanese Christ of the Shinto religion, is the one who has the powers to open the doors of Gokurat, paradise. The German Eddas mention the Christos, the god of their theogony, similar to Jesus, born on the 24th of December at midnight, the same as Odin, Woden, and Belanos. When one studies the Gospel of Krishna, the Christian Hindu Christ, one is astonished upon discovering the same Gospel of Jesus. However, Krishna was born many centuries before Jesus. Devaki, the Hindu virgin, conceived Krishna by the deed and grace of the Holy Spirit. The child god Krishna was transported to the stable of Nandan, and the gods and angels came to adore him. The life, passion, and death of Krishna is similar to that of Jesus. It is worthwhile to study all religions. The comparative study of religions leads one to comprehend that all religions conserve the eternal values, that no religion is false, that all are true. All religions talk about the soul, about heaven, hell, etc. The principles are always the same. Among the Romans, hell was the Avernus. Among the Greeks, it was the Tartarus. And among the Hindus, the Avici, etc. Heaven, among the Romans and Greeks, was Olympus. Each religion has its heaven. When the religion of the Aeon ended, when it degenerated, the priests became soothsayers, jugglers, etc., but the eternal principles did not die. They were robed with the new religious form of Christianity. The pagan priests, denominated augur, druid, flamen, hierophant, Dionysius, and sacrificer, were rebaptized in Christianity with the sacred titles of the clergy, pastors, prelates, pope, anointed, abbot, theologian, etc. The gods, semigods, titans, goddesses, sylphids, cyclops, messengers of the gods of ancient religions were rebaptized with the names of Miguels, archangels, seraphim, powers, virtues, thrones, etc. If the gods were adored in antiquity, they are also adored now, except with different names. Religious forms change according to the historical times and the races. Each race needs its special religious form. People need religion. A people without religion are in fact a totally barbarian, cruel, and pitiless. The fourth unit of reason. The fanatic communists mortally hate anything that has the flavor of divinity. Fanatic materialists believe that with their three-dimensional reasoning, they can resolve all the problems of the cosmos, and the worst of the matter is that they do not even know themselves. The God matter of the materialists' gentleman does not withstand an in-depth analysis. Until now, the fanatics of Marxist dialectic have not been able to really demonstrate the existence of matter. During the entire past century and part of the 20th century, the fanatic materialists have wasted their time arguing the already tiresome subject of matter and energy. Much has been said about energy and matter. Nonetheless, the latter continue, in spite of all speculations, really being the unknown X, Y. So what? The funny thing of the matter is that the reactionary followers of the famous dialectic materialism have always tried to define one for the other. It is certainly ridiculous to define the unknown with the unknown. The poor children kidnapped from Tibet are taught in Beijing phrases such as this: Matter is that in which the changes called movements are carried out, and movements are those changes which are carried out in matter. This is the identity of the unknown. X equals Y, Y equals X. The conclusion, it is a vicious circle, ignorance, and absurdity. Who has at some time had in the palm of his hand a piece of matter without any form whatsoever? Who has known matter free of every concept of movement? Matter in itself, energy in itself. Who has known it? No one has seen matter. No one has seen energy. The human being only perceives phenomena, things, forms, images, etc., but never has he seen the substance of things. The materialistic gentlemen totally ignore everything that a given substance is and dogmatically call it matter, when in reality they have only seen wood, copper, gold, rock, etc. Really, the so-called matter is an abstract concept as beauty, generosity, courage. No fanatic of dialectic materialism has ever seen the substance of things in itself as the thing is in itself. We do not deny that they utilize what they dogmatically call matter. The donkey also utilizes the grass for its nourishment without knowing it, but this is not science. This is not wisdom. This is nothing. Do the fanatics of dialectic materialism want to convert all human beings into donkeys? According to what we are seeing, that is so. What else can be expected from those who do not want to know things in themselves? Art. As the human being precipitated himself down the path of involution and degeneration, as he became more and more materialistic, his senses also deteriorated and degenerated. A school of Babylon that was dedicated to everything related to the olfactory sense comes to our memory. They had a motto that said, "Seek the truth in the shades of aromas obtained between the moment of the action of frozen cold and the moment of the action in warm decomposition." That school was persecuted and destroyed by a very terrible chief. That chief had very dishonest business matters, and he was soon indirectly accused by those affiliated to that school. The sense of smell, extraordinarily developed, permitted the students of said school to discover many things which were not convenient to government chiefs. There was another very important school in Babylon, the school of painters. This school had as its motto, "Discover and elucidate the truth only by the tonalities which exist between white and black." During that time, those affiliated to such a school could normally utilize, without difficulty, nearly 1,500 shades of the gray color. From the Babylonian period until these sad days in which we live, the human senses have been frighteningly degenerating due to the materialism, which Marx justifies in his manner with the cheap sophistry of his dialectic. The I continues after death and is perpetuated in our descendants. The I is complicated with materialistic experiences and becomes robust at the expense of human faculties. As the I has become invigorated throughout the centuries, human faculties have been degenerating more and more each time. The sacred dances were authentic informative books that deliberately transmitted certain transcendental cosmic teachings. The dancing dervishes do not ignore the mutually equilibrated 7 temptations of living organisms. The ancient dancers knew the 7 independent parts of the body and knew very well what the 7 different lines of movement are. The sacred dancers of Babylon, Greece, and Egypt did not ignore that all of this crystallized in the whirling atom and on the gigantic planet that dances around its center of cosmic gravitation. If we could invent a machine that imitated with exactness all the movements of the 7 planets of our solar system around the sun, we would discover with amazement the secret of the dancing dervishes. Really, the dancing dervishes imitate to perfection all the movements of the planets around the sun. The sacred dances of the times of Egypt, Babylon, Greece, etc. go still further. They transmitted tremendous cosmic, anthropogenetic, psychobiological, mathematical truths, etc. When the first symptoms of atheism, skepticism, and materialism began to appear in Babylon, the degeneration of the five senses accelerated in a frightening manner. It is perfectly demonstrated that we are what we think, that if we think as materialists, we degenerate and fossilize ourselves. Marx committed an unpardonable crime. He took away the spiritual values of humanity. Marxism has unleashed religious persecution. Marxism has precipitated humanity to total degeneration. Materialistic Marxist ideas have permeated everywhere, in schools and in the home, in the temple and in the office, etc. The artists of each new generation have become true apologists of the materialistic dialectic. Every breath of spirituality has disappeared in ultramodern art. Modern artists no longer know anything of the law of seven. They no longer know anything about the cosmic dramas. They no longer know anything about the sacred dances of the ancient mysteries. The tenebrous ones have stolen the theater and the stage. They have miserably profaned it. They have totally prostituted it. The Sabbath, the day of the theater, the day of the mysteries, was very popular in the ancient temples. Marvelous cosmic dramas were then presented. Drama served to transmit valuable teachings to the initiates. By means of drama, different forms of experience of the being and manifestations of the being were transmitted to the initiates. Among the dramas, the most ancient one is that of the cosmic Christ. The initiates knew very well that each of us should become the Christ of said drama if we really aspire to the kingdom of the Superman. The cosmic dramas are based on the law of seven. Certain intelligent deviations of such law were always utilized to transmit to the neophyte transcendental teachings. It is well known in music that certain notes can produce happiness in the thinking center, others can produce sadness in the sensitive center, and lastly, others can produce religiosity in the motor center. Really, the old hierophants never ignored that integral knowledge can only be acquired with the three cerebrums. A single cerebrum cannot give complete information. The sacred dance and cosmic drama, wisely combined with music, serve to transmit to neophytes tremendous archaic teachings of a cosmogenetic, psychobiological, psychochemical, metaphysical type, etc. It is befitting to mention sculpture here. The latter was grandiose in bygone times. The allegorical beings, chiseled on hard rock, reveal that the old masters never ignored the law of seven. Let us remember the Sphinx of Giza in Egypt. It talks to us about the four elements of nature and of the four basic conditions of the Superman. After the Second World War, existentialist philosophy and existentialist art were born. When we have seen existentialist actors on the stage, we have arrived at the conclusion that they are true maniacal and perverse sick persons. If Marxism continues to be disseminated, the human being will end up totally losing his five senses, which are in the process of degeneration. It is already proven by observation and experience that the absence of spiritual values produces degeneration. The painting of today, music, sculpture, drama, etc. are nothing but the product of degeneration. The initiates of other times, the sacred female dancers, the true artists of the great times no longer appear on the stage. Now only sick automatons, degenerated singers, rebels without a cause, etc. appear on the stage. Ultra-modern theaters are the antithesis of the sacred theaters of the great mysteries of Egypt, Greece, India, etc. The art of these times is tenebrous. It is the antithesis of light, and modern artists are tenebrous. Surrealistic painting, Marxist sculpture, Afro-Cuban music, and the modern female dancers are the result of human degeneration. The young men and women of the new generations receive by means of the three cerebrums data which is sufficient to convert them into swindlers, thieves, assassins, bandits, homosexuals, prostitutes, etc. No one does anything to put an end to this bad art, and everything marches towards a final catastrophe due to the lack of a revolution of the dialectic. Materialistic science. On a certain occasion, a materialistic atheist, an enemy of the living eternal God, and a religious man argued. They argued about the subject of which was first, the egg or the chicken. One answered, "It was the egg. Of course it was the egg." "And who laid the egg?" "Well, the chicken." So the other one said that it was the chicken. "And where did the chicken come from?" "Well, from the egg." This is a story that never ends. Finally, a little impatient, the religious man said, "Could you make an egg the way God did it?" A materialist answered, "Yes, I can." "Do it," exclaimed the religious man, and the materialist made an egg which was identical to that of a chicken, with its yolk, albumin, and shell. Seeing this, the religious man said, "Since you made a marvelous egg, it will produce a chicken. Let us place the egg in the incubator in order for it to be born." "Agreed," said the materialist, and they placed the egg in the incubator, but the chicken never came out. The sage Mr. Alfonso Herrera, author of Plasmogeny, managed to create a cell, but a dead cell, which never had life. Grafts are made, a branch from another plant is implanted into another, supposedly to improve the fruits. The know-it-alls thus want to correct nature. What they do is an absurdity. Grafts do not carry the same natural living force of the megalocosm. Ingested adulterated fruits come to harm the human body from the energetic point of view. However, scientists feel satisfied with their experiments. They do not understand that each tree captures energy, transforms, and retransmits it to the fruits. Upon altering the tree, the energies of the megalocosm are altered, and already that fruit is not the same. It is the product of an adultery, and it harms organisms. However, materialistic scientists believe that they know, when really and truly they do not know. They not only ignore, but what is worse, they ignore that they ignore. Artificial inseminations are made, the famous spermatozoan, the vivifying cells of an organism, and already because of that, scientists think that they are creating life. They do not realize that they are only utilizing what nature has already made. Let us put on the laboratory table the chemical elements which are needed to fabricate a spermatozoan and an ovum. Let us tell the scientists to make the ovum and the spermatozoan. Would they do it? I say that they would. But would they have life? Could perhaps a living child come out of it? Never, ever, because they do not know how to create life. Therefore, with what proofs do they deny the superior or creative intelligences? If they are not even capable of creating the seed of a tree, a seed that can germinate? What is the basis that materialists have to deny the creative intelligences? Why do they pronounce themselves against the eternal? Has any materialistic scientist been able to create life? When? To play with what nature has already made is something easy, but to create life is different. No scientist can do it. Are they creating life when they divide an amoeba into two, separate its parts on a laboratory table, and unite it with another piece of microorganism and they say, "Eureka, eureka, eureka," but they are not capable of creating an amoeba? Where is the science of these materialist gentlemen? When have they demonstrated that they can replace the divinity? The reality of facts is that they not only ignore, but what is worse, they ignore that they ignore. Facts are the ones that count, and until now, they have not demonstrated it. They say that man comes from the monkey. They come out with the theory of the cynocephalus, without a tail, the monkey without a tail, and arboreal men, children of the neoptozoids, etc. But which would then be the missing mink? On what day have they found a monkey that is capable of speaking, gifted with speech? It has not appeared until now. These materialist gentlemen are ridiculous. They are presenting us with suppositions and not facts. Let us measure the volume of the cerebrum of the best of the monkeys and compare it to the cerebrum of a backward man that may be found, for example, in the tribes of Australia. It is obvious that that monkey would not reach the speaking capacity. Are materialists therefore not refuting the theories of Darwin himself and his followers? Does man come from the monkey? On what basis do they sustain it? How do they demonstrate it? Until when are we going to wait for the supposed missing link? We want to see that species of monkey speaking like people. It has not appeared. Therefore, it is a supposition of a nonsense that has no reality. Why do they speak of things that they do not know? Why so many cheap utopias? Simply because they have their consciousness asleep, because they have never become interested in carrying out a psychological revolution within themselves, and because they lack the practice of sexual superdynamics. The crude reality of facts is that they are hypnotized. Whoever does not practice the teachings of the revolution of the dialectic will fall into the same errors of the materialistic scientists. Materialistic scientists continuously come out with many theories. By way of example, we will mention that theory of the selection of the species. An insignificant mollusk develops, and from it come out other living species through the process of selection until arriving at man. Can they demonstrate this theory? Obviously not. We do not deny that in each species certain selective processes do exist. There are birds, for example, that migrate in specific times. One is amazed to see them all gathered, how strange they become. Then they pick up flight to cross the ocean, and on the way they die. Only the strongest surviving the struggle. Those that survive the struggle transmit their characteristics to their descendants. This is how the selective law works. There are beasts that on the basis of so much struggle become stronger and stronger each time, transmitting their psychological characteristics to their descendants. Never has natural selection been able to present to us a new species upon the stage of existence. Nonetheless, many are those who have given selection the characteristics of a creator. Much has also been said about the protoplasm. From the protoplasm, which is submerged in the salty sea since millions of years ago, from that protoplasm, it is said that universal life came forth. Protists, materialists, make their ignorant followers believe, like themselves, that the psychological development of the intellectual animal, mistakenly called man, comes from the molecular development of the protoplasm and that it marches parallel with the processes of the same. Protists want the consciousness, or however they may want to call it, to be the result of the evolution of the protoplasm throughout the centuries. This is how protists, those who believe that they are gifted with knowledge, believe. Haeckel's atomic moneron, that atom that is submerged there in the aqueous abyss from which all life surged forth, comes to my memory. This is how Haeckel and his followers think. Something complex that has not had to undergo different cosmic universal processes has not been organized. The reality is that scientists neither know anything about life nor death, nor about where we come from, nor where we are going, much less what the objective of existence is. Why? Simply because they have their consciousness asleep, because they have not done the interior revolution of the dialectic, because they are at the level of massive collective hypnosis due to the lack of integral revolution that we teach in this work. Materialistic science marches on the path of error. It knows nothing about the origin of man and much less about his inner psychology. We do not deny that the law of natural selection has existed, but it has not created anything new. We do not deny that the species vary throughout time, but the variability factors only go into action after the original prototypes have crystallized in the physical world. The original prototypes of any living species previously develops in psychological space, in the superior dimensions of nature, in the superior dimensions that materialistic scientists deny, because they do not perceive them, and they do not perceive them because they are psychologically hypnotized. If they were first to come out of the state of hypnosis and then talked, their concepts would be different. But they sleep due to the lack of mental and sexual dynamics. If someone wants to know about the origin of the human being, he has to observe ontogeny. Ontogeny is a recapitulation of phylogeny. What is ontogeny within anthropology? It is the process of development of the fetus within the maternal womb. If we observe the processes of gestation of a mother, we can evince that ontogeny is a recapitulation of phylogeny, which in turn is a state of evolution and transformation through which the human race has undergone throughout the centuries. Ontogeny recapitulates these states within the maternal womb. An ontogic analysis would lead us to the logical conclusion that the human species and the other animal species have resemblance in their origin and come from psychological space. But that matter of natural selection, of the different variants or factors that produce variation in the human race, only go into action after the species, whichever they may be, have physically crystallized. Before physical crystallization, evolving psychological processes exist within the living bosom of nature that are unknown to Haeckel and his followers, because they in reality know nothing about the origin of the human being. How is it possible that materialistic scientists say that certain variations exist in the different types of living species, whether it be by accident or in a spontaneous manner? Is it perhaps not a contradiction? Is it not they themselves who say that this universe is the result of force, matter, and necessity? How is it that they contradict themselves and then talk to us about spontaneous variance in a universe of force and necessity? Is that possible? A universe of force, matter, and necessity does not admit spontaneous or accidental variations. Those variations in the species exist due to something which they themselves do not know. Materialistic science does not only ignore, but what is worse, it ignores that it ignores. Psychoanalytical Gnostic anthropology delves profoundly into the past. This human race, which nowadays populates the face of the earth, is nothing more than a race of intellectual animals mistakenly called men. You can become offended if you want, but before this race of intellectual animals existed, Lemurian, Hyperborean, and polar men existed. Intellectual animals are derived from Atlantis. They were born in Atlantis. The real men of Lemuria in their last days withdrew from the world's scenery. They left their organisms to the superior elements of the animal kingdom. The race of intellectual animals was preceded by the men who existed in Lemuria, in the Hyperborean continent, and in the northern polar cap, which in that era was situated in the equatorial zone. On what does psychoanalytical Gnostic anthropology base itself to affirm this? Why does it say this? It bases itself not only on all the traditions that come in the books of ancient Egypt, of the land of the Incas, of the land of the Mayas, from Greece, India, Persia, Tibet, etc., but also on the direct investigations of those who have succeeded in awakening consciousness through a psychological revolution. We are delivering through this work all the systems which are needed to awaken consciousness, and when you awaken, you will be able to investigate and verify for yourselves what I affirm in an emphatic manner. But it is necessary to awaken in order to touch, see, hear, feel, and not be a victim of the theories of a Haeckel, Darwin, Huxley, and his followers. 3 races of men existed, but how could you know it when your consciousness is asleep? Those who succeed in awakening will be able to investigate in the Akashic archives of nature. How was the first race? In what manner did it exist? In those times, around 300 millions of years ago, according to the investigations that we have carried out, the protoplasmic men existed and the earth itself was still protoplasm. It is not that protoplasm of Haeckel and the salty sea and thousands of other foolishness without any confirmation. No, the protoplastic race is different. A human race floated in the atmosphere. It had still not fallen on the humid earth. How did it reproduce, and what was its origin? This race had evolved and involved in the superior dimensions of nature and of the cosmos. It finally crystallized on an earth which was also protoplasmic, after many evolving processes surged forth from its original germ located in the chaos, in the Magnus Limbus, in the Yelaster of the world. When that race crystallized, it formed the surface, the nucleus, which could just as well assume gigantic figures as well as reduce itself to a mathematical point. On what do I base myself to affirm this? On the awakened consciousness. Have I evinced it? Yes, I have. And if you accept the doctrine of reincarnation, so much the better. Obviously, I was reincarnated in that race, and since I am awake, I cannot forget the evolving and involuting processes of the same. That is why I give testimony before you, knowing that you are asleep, but I should deposit all those data that you need in order for you to awaken. How did that race multiply? How did they reproduce? Not as Master Blavatsky said, that they did it in an asexual manner, that they did not need sex for that. Such an affirmation is erroneous, because the force of the Mahachoan, the creative energy of the third Logos, flows in an overwhelming manner in everything that has been and will be. The type of reproduction was fissiparous. It expressed itself in a different sexual form. Organisms divided themselves the way living cells divide. Biology students know well how the cellular cell divides. The cytoplasm with a piece of nucleus becomes separated. They do not ignore that. Ever since then, the fissiparous process remained in the blood and continues occurring in our cells by the millions. Isn't that true? Who dares to deny it? I present facts. Do you perhaps believe that that cellular process does not have a root, an origin? If you were to think so, it would be absurd, because there is not a cause without an effect, and no effect without a cause. Therefore, we have inherited that. From whom? From the men of the first race. The detached organism could continue developing thanks to the fact that it continued capturing, accumulating protoplasm from the surrounding atmosphere. Later, the Hyperboreans surged forth, of whom Friedrich Nietzsche speaks about. People who lived in those horseshoes that surround the North Pole, country in the north. Have we evinced this? Yes or no? You have not, because you are asleep. I have, because I am awake. Deny it? I do not deny it. If you consider me crazy, but I have to give testimony no matter what. I have to always say the truth. The Hyperboreans also existed. They were no longer as gelatinous as the protoplasmic men. Upon speaking in this manner, I'm not referring to the cellular soul of Haeckel in the salty sea, nor to the famous atomic moneron. That is Haeckel and his followers with their absurd theories. Now I wish to emphatically refer to that Hyperborean race that was derived from the protoplasmic race. The Hyperboreans were a more psychic race that reproduced by sexuality in the form of budding. Have you seen the corals on the cliffs of the stormy ocean? From one coral comes another, and from that one another and another. There are plants which by means of their sprouts continue multiplying themselves. The same occurred with the Hyperboreans. Certain sprouts that appeared in the father-mother operated the sexual force until that sprout became detached and gave rise to a new creature. That was the method of reproduction of the Hyperboreans. In the end, that race became submerged in the bottom of the stormy Pacific Ocean throughout millions of evolutions and involutions of this fecund nature. From the bottom of the seas later surged forth a gigantic continent, Lemuria, which covered the entire Pacific Ocean. It was there where for the first time the human race rested upon the hard crust of the earth. The Lemurian continent appeared not through spontaneous generation, as Epicurus and his followers believed, nor through natural selection, the theory elevated to the category of a creating God, marvelous rhetoric that has come from the absurd, isn't that so? How did it surge forth? In what manner? As the Arboreans crystallized, their human bodies took up a hard shape. In this manner, the Lemurian hermaphrodites appeared, in the same manner as they are symbolized in the gigantic sculptures of Tiahuanaco, Hidalgo, Mexico. They walked upon the face of the earth. In the beginning, they reproduced by detaching an egg cell from their organism, and this egg cell developed to give origin to a new creature. That is the epoch in which the phallus and the uterus had not yet been formed. That was the epoch in which the lingam yoni were germinating. That was the epoch in which the ovary had not yet developed. The times elapsed in Lemuria, and the reproduction system by germination appeared. Such a system caused astonishment in that epoch. The ovary received a fertilizing cell, in other words, a spermatozoon, in such a manner that when that egg became detached from the ovary of a hermaphrodite, it already went previously fertilized. Upon coming to existence, the egg opened up after a certain time of fecundation, and from there came out a new child. That is why the Nahuas said, "The children of the third sun transformed themselves into birds," a wise affirmation of the ancient Nahua culture. But once the end of Lemuria came closer, in the third or fourth subrace onwards, human beings divided into opposite sexes. Cooperation was then necessary to create. The system of cooperation to create comes from Lemuria. It is clear that an ovary egg fertilized by a spermatozoon is needed. It is only in this manner, in the union of a fertilizing cell with an ovum, that the original cell with the 48 chromosomes can surge forth, which we indubitably carry in our interior, and in which the 48 laws of our creation are represented.